checking out this video. I'm Nicole, the COO at OnTheClock.com, and I wanted to get a video together in relation to how you calculate PTO accruals and PTO banks for your employees, because we get a ton of questions through our support channel all the time about this topic, and it can be labor intensive and error prone. So we wrote a blog article about it, which is really helpful. It does some working examples for the accrual rate and then also that bank calculation. But what I want to do today is scan through that, show you that article real quick, and then also open the free tool that we have where you can just plug your numbers in and walk through that and how that works, because it's going to be much faster and much less prone to errors for you. So I'm going to share my screen and show you how I get to this article. I go to our site, OnTheClock.com, and click on more at the top, and then I go down to the OTC blog, and I'm going to search for that how to calculate PTO, paid time off accruals and bank balances article. So let's start with PTO and what is that? So for the purpose of the article and the video, we use the abbreviation of PTO, and that includes any vacation days, personal days, sick days, basically anything that any days that you're paying employees to be off fall under that bucket. And so let's go down here now to PTO accrual. So this first section is going to talk about how you get an accrual rate. And that is the time off that the employee is earning as the work year progresses. So the most commonly used accrual rules are accrue X hours per regular hour worked, accrue X% of regular hours worked, or the most straightforward one is accrue X hours per pay period. So as we scroll through here, you're going to see the working examples. Each rule is spelled out for the accrual rate. And then when we get down here, we're going to be talking about how you figure the bank. And there's also examples there listed in the article, which are really handy. I highly recommend you check them out. But for the rest of this video here, I want to talk about the free PTO tool near the end of the article. So you just click on this link here under free PTO calculating tool. It's in orange, the free PTO tool. And I'm going to switch over to that spreadsheet now and go through that. So the spreadsheet is set up similar to the article, where we have step 1 is to find your accrual rate, and on tab 2, it's step 2, and it's to get your total accrued PTO bank. So there's some notes and instructions at the top here. So let's get started going through those. These yellow cells on both tabs are going to be the ones that you can adjust to fit your business needs in your PTO policy. And number 2 here, examples 1 and 2, these are both figuring a rate. So they're pretty much calculated the same, but I wanted to list them out separately. Just depends on which rule you use, which would be which section you're going to use to calculate. But you will notice quite a bit of similarity. In number 3, note that depending on how weekends fall in leap year, there's some years that have 260 typical work days, all the way up to 262 work days. So you're going to see slight variances depending on the year that you're looking at. And especially if you're outside of this tool and you're just using an average year, you might use 260, let's say. So that will show, like I said, a very slight variation. So just something to note. This tool assists with Monday through Friday work weeks. So you may count the days on the calendar and enter in column C if you have a work week that falls outside of Monday through Friday, for example. But if you're Monday through Friday, this tool will work for you. Number 4 is if you would like the holidays to count towards the accrual, you're going to want to remove these from the list in column I and J. So this would be done by just highlighting and deleting. And as you can see, the numbers over here are changing when we do that. The reason we have these holidays here is because we are making the assumption that when you set your rule to accrue X hours per regular hour worked, you truly want regular hour worked and you don't want to count holidays in that. So it really depends on how your policy works. But that's the reason for that. So number 5, holidays are only required for example 1 and 2, and holidays have to fall within the year that you are entering in column A and B. So if we go over here to January 1st to December 31st, you're going to notice that they're listed as 2021, as are these holidays here. And so if we went over here and put in a holiday from 2022, you're going to see that nothing changes. And that's because this year has to match these years here. And one other thing to note on holidays is if you put in a holiday that is on a weekend, it's not going to be subtracted because this formula over here is already subtracting weekends. So you need to make sure that you put the holiday date in here of the day observed. So for 2021, you're going to notice that we've got 12/23 and 12/24. We wanted to adjust those because the holidays happen to fall on a weekend this year. So that's just one other important note to make sure that this works. So let's go back to our example. So example number 1 is going to be accrue X hours per regular hour worked. So we get started here with entering the things that make sense for your business. So let's say you're giving the employee 40 hours per year for PTO that came from your policy. On average, the employee works 40 hours in a week, so we put 40. And on average, they work 5 days per week, so we put 5. The start date and end date here could be anything that you want it to be. This is just a calendar year, but it could be the employee's anniversary date, whatever makes sense for your business. But in the example of using this from January to December, it's just a little bit more straightforward. And so this handy formula here is this equals net work days. The spreadsheet is able to figure out how many days could be worked in a period of time, Monday through Friday. So how many Monday through Fridays are occurring? So it's excluding weekends. So all you do is you pick the first date, the end date, and then you're going to pick the range of dates that you want removed, which was going back to our holiday list where we're taking out those 6. So we get the dates available to work minus the holidays is 255. So our accrual rate per hour worked ends up being 0.0200. Very important to get that correct. And as you notice, even though there's zeros here, we still kept the 4 decimal points, and I highly recommend that as well. A system like OnTheClock is going to use those 4 decimal points. You're going to need them anyway, but the reason for that is the high level of accuracy needed when you're talking about this topic. So I recommend you don't round up or down on this. So to get our accrual rate per hour worked, we took cell E in column G and we divided that out. So we took E15 here, which is our paid time off given for the year, and we divided it by G19, which is our regular hours with PTO excluded here. So this is how we got our rate. Now, if you look over here, to get these figures, we wanted to get our average hours per workday. So we just divided the 40 by 5 to get 8. And we wanted to know the regular hours expected to work for the year. So we took C times E, which is the dates available, times the workday hours per day on average. And the regular hours that a person could work for that year is 2,040. But then you also needed to subtract the PTO from that because, again, we're looking to make sure that we're only tracking per hour worked. So the end result here with this 0.0200 is that we looked at the maximum days amount possible to be worked for the year, and we subtracted our holidays and we subtracted PTO from it and then divided it out to get our answer. So example 2 is very similar. We're plugging in the same type of thing where you're giving the PTO hours, the employees' hours worked per week, and then their work days per week. And we've got that start and end date again, and we're doing the net work days where we're looking at start date and end date, how many Mondays through Fridays are in there, and we're subtracting those holidays. So again, we over here have some additional calculations where we're looking at the regular hours worked, and then we're subtracting the PTO so that we can get to our accrual percentage that excludes PTO and holidays and only looks at what you're giving in PTO for every hour worked, whether it is an hour or whether it's the percent. So example 3 here is going to be accrue X hours per pay period. So the only thing you really need to know for this one is how much time off you're giving the employee. Again, it's much more straightforward. That's 40 hours in our example, and you enter your start and end dates because what we want to do is divide the 40 hours by the pay period here. So we're going to do the 40 divided by how many pay periods you have, and that's how you get your accrual rate here. So again, these 4 digits and decimals, highly recommend that you keep that. So that's how you easily get in orange here your accrual percentages or your accrual rate. It's much easier to just plug these figures in and then you don't have to worry about the math. So let's move over to step 2, which is to calculate the total accrued PTO bank. So some of these cells here do pull from the accrual rate because this is generally the first step. But some of these cells you can move around, or not move around, but you can change if you'd like, because you may have already figured this and you may only be using this spreadsheet to get an accrued PTO bank. But there's a couple notes here. So again, just like the first one, the yellow cells are the ones that you're going to be able to adjust with information that's relevant to your policy or to your business. And number two, we're entering the start and end date of the pay period. That's going to come from that previous sheet because we want to use that rate already figured, unless you already have that. So number three, the accrual rate is pulling from the accrual rate tab, but you can adjust that. So that would be this one right here. So if you were like, you know what, I already know that it's 0.4, you can adjust that, no problem. Note that on number four here, depending on how weekends fall in leap year, again, some years are going to have 260 up to 260 days. So there's going to be a slight variance if you calculate outside of the spreadsheet and just use a general average for how many days are in a year. And number five, an example in 1 and 2, the average hours worked per day could be left blank because that's really just figuring how many PTO hours are in the bank in terms of days. So like, let's say we got rid of that here. This just wouldn't work then, and you would just have your answer in hours. But if you want it by days, you can put in that average. And then number six, this is going to be your average, or your answer again, I should say, in orange, just like on the first tab. So let's walk through this here. Example one is accruing X hours per regular hour worked. So on average, they work 8 hours a day. And this particular employee has used 2 hours of PTO in this time range. So we went to the time cards. If you have a system like OnTheClock, it works really easy. It's really smooth to get the total hours worked. But if you don't, you might have to do some manual calculations here. So what we want to do is look at the total hours that they've worked from the time cards. So this is a little bit different than this tab was, where we were putting in a start and end date. The reason we use the start and end date is so we could get an accrual rate. But at this point, we're using that accrual rate to calculate our total here, but we need to look at the hours that the employee has actually worked so far. So that's why there's a difference there. So we got these hours, let's say, from our time cards. Let's say we went into OnTheClock, we looked at time cards, we got our totals of 160. So the accrual rate comes over from that tab. And in order to get the answer here, we're going to take the total hours worked from time cards, multiply that by C, the accrual rate, and then we want to subtract cell E15 here, which is the PTO that they've already used, because we don't want to include that. That's not in their bank anymore because it's gone. So you'll see that your total accrued bank in hours ends up being 1.2000, and in terms of days, that's 0.15. You can see here, if you got rid of that, it would go up. So example number 2 is accrue X% of regular hours worked. So what we want to do here is, again, the average hours per workday would be 8. And let's say this employee hasn't used any PTO yet. We went over to our time cards and we got the 260 hours. Our accrual rate comes from the previous tab of 0.0408, but you can change that if you want to whatever fits your need. And you get a total answer here of the PTO hours in the bank of 10.6122. And then we divide that out by that 8 hours worked in a day to get 1.33 days in the bank. And finally, our last example here is to accrue X hours per pay period. So you do, again, need a start and end date for this one. So we're going to do January to December just to make it easy. And we list out the pay periods that you're going to have for each one of these examples. And you, let's say, we're going to look here at our answer. We took E30, which is going to be our accrual rate, and we multiplied that by D30, which is the 52 weeks in the year, to get our PTO hours that are in our bank. And if you wanted to divide that out to figure out the PTO bank in days, you would just divide that again by the average hours worked in a day, and you get 5. So this is the much straightforward option. Basically what you're doing is you're just looking at a period of a year, for example, and dividing it out by 52 to get your rate, or whatever it might be. If it's biweekly, it'd be 26. That's semi-monthly, you have 24 pay periods, and monthly, you'd have 12 pay periods. So I hope you found this useful, and I would highly recommend going back through this and just testing out these yellow cells. This is a public worksheet. So you are able to download this, save it, make a copy, whatever you want to do, so you can use it for future reference. And if you're not using a system already for tracking your employees' PTO, I highly recommend you come on over to our homepage here. And if you scroll up to the top right, I already have an account, so it's not going to show for me. But there's normally a start a free trial button up here. It's 30 days, no card required. There's no setup fees. There's no obligation, no contracts, nothing like that. And just give it a try. You can figure out your PTO accrual rates and plug it in and see what you think. I think that you'll find it's a lot more efficient and it provides a lot more transparency to your employees. So it's all around highly beneficial. So give it a try. Test out some of these numbers here, see how this works. And please like, share, subscribe to the video. If you'd like to see more of these in the future, please leave a comment or ask a question. I will definitely get back to you. Again, I hope you enjoyed watching this video and you got something out of it. Thanks for watching and have a great day.